El doctor Botz estudió física especializada en el campo de la física teórica de las partículas. Se unió a la Sociedad Max Planck en el 2004, en donde está a cargo de las políticas de acceso abierto. Esto no es una cosa banal, porque recordarán que la Sociedad Max Planck es una de las primeras firmantes de la Declaración de Berlín y una de las pioneras en el Open Access en el mundo. El doctor Botz es uno de los miembros del Consejo de Open Access dentro de esta organización, por lo tanto su participación ha sido básica en el Open Access en el mundo. Dr. Botz, welcome.
Buenos dias. I have to admit that these are almost my only words in Spanish language. So, first of all, I'd like to thank you and thank the organizers for inviting me to give this presentation here in Guadalajara. It's my first stay in Mexico, and I enjoyed the city very much. I was asked to give you a short overview about the activities of the Max Planck Society with respect to open access. And I think I should start with a very short introduction about my home organization, the Max Planck Society. Then I will address the Berlin Declaration on Open Access. This declaration was mentioned by Banu a few minutes ago. And I think the main topic of the talk will be about the benefits and barriers to open access, how to overcome the barriers, how to move forward to implement open access. And as Max Planck has about a decade of experience with open access, I would like to present you some of our experiences, want to share with you what experience and expectations you have. And finally, I would like to show you some of the results of policies within Max Planck Society with respect to open access. So, Max Planck Society. It's a research organization, it's not a funding organization. Max Planck Society operates institutes. It was founded after the Second World War, but we have a predecessor, the Kaiser Wilhelm Gesellschaft, which was founded more than 100 years ago. The Max Planck Society is devoted to basic research in the public interest. That is, we operate institutes which do basic research, cutting edge, which is strictly curiosity driven. But of course, this is a quote by Max Planck, the patron of the Max Planck Society, the founder of the quantum theory: insight must precede application. And therefore, of course, the insight and the results of the research done and performed within Max Planck Society and within our institute will have some applications. But the main focus is on curiosity-driven research, basic research. Just to give you a short overview, some facts and figures. We have about 17,000 staff members. This is our working force, employers, visiting scientists, research fellows, postdocs, PhD students, all added together. 5,500 among them are scientists, plus we have junior scientists and guest scientists, which count for about 4,600 as well. The annual budget, the Max Planck Society is mostly financed by the federal government and the states in Germany. The annual budget is about 1.5 billion euros. And you have to add to this number about 400 million euros, which are third-party funds and our own revenues. As I told you a few minutes ago, we operate institutes on our own. We have about 80 institutes spread all over Germany, and some of them are abroad. In Europe, and one in the US recently opened 2 years ago. These institutes are the main building block of the society, and therefore we are a rather distributed organization. Some of the guiding principles of our society are listed here. Each of our institutes, each director at the institute, they have their own budget, they can recruit personnel on their own, they are autonomous to a very high degree. They decide what research they will perform, they shape their departments, they decide with which partners they want to cooperate nationally and internationally. These are the main principles, and maybe you can summarize it. We are funding persons, not programs. The scientist is in the center, the principal scientists, our scientific members are at the heart of the Max Planck Society. Maybe this concept is not it's performing very well. Since the society was re-established after the Second World War, 17 of our scientific members have been awarded the Nobel Prize. This is the number only, but I think we are very proud of these colleagues. As Banu said earlier, publication is at the very heart of science, because science is built on the results of others, and how to know about the results, you have to publish them. And as you can see from this analysis, the Max Planck Society employs many of the world's highly cited researchers. We are number 5 in this list. This is a comparison across 1 decade, and you see University of California, Harvard University, they are on the first places, but Max Planck, being a rather small society compared to these universities, is performing very well. And making its scientist research finding available for the benefit of the whole of humanity is a key aspiration of the Max Planck Society. And this brings me to the idea of open access. Maybe some of you know that the Berlin Declaration on Open Access to the science, to knowledge in the sciences and humanities was published more than a decade ago. I would like to remind you that academic publishing is still out of step with the public use of the internet. You are born digital native, sitting in front of me, and you are used to have information freely available on the internet. And this fact, and the fact that our mission is to make the results of our research available to society as a whole, this is the spirit out of which the Berlin Declaration on Open Access was initiated in 2003. Okay, this is a quote from maybe the central quote of the Berlin Declaration. Our mission of disseminating knowledge is only half complete if the information is not made widely and readily available to society. This is the very reason why we do open access and why we perform, why we implement policies, why we try to support the change in the current publishing system. I think together with the Budapest Open Access Initiative and the Bethesda Statement on Open Access, the Berlin Declaration is one of the milestones in the development of the international open access movement. So, we are not alone. During the last decade, about 480 organizations across the world from more than 70 countries have signed the Berlin Declaration. Among them, famous and well-known institutions like Harvard University, for instance, or Yad Vashem in Israel, or, this was quite a surprise to me, the Pontifical Academy of Sciences signed the Berlin Declaration a year ago. I'm not sure how many institutions in Mexico signed the Berlin Declaration already. There are some. It's a limited number, 3 or 4. But I think there's always room for improvement. And as you see, the number of signatories is growing over the years and continues to grow. So, I'm not sure whether I should address the basic concepts of open access once more. Banu mentioned it already. Open access is about accessibility and about the possibility to reuse scientific information in other contexts and without financial, technical, or legal barriers. And of course, if you have a new concept, there are misconceptions as well. I listed here some most important for you as scientists and scientists in SPE. Open access policies do not affect the author's freedom to decide where to publish or whether to publish at all. This is important, and I will give a talk tomorrow at the conference in the expo. There are businessmen sitting in front of me, and I have to make clear as well that open access policies do not interfere with patenting or with commercial exploitations of results. Because if you wanted to patent something, you have to make it, you have to publish it anyway. Patents are available, are publicly available. There is no conflict of interest. So, open access. Oops, I have a problem here. I have to sync with this both computers, but it works. A very short description, open access in a nutshell, so to say, is given by Peter Suber. Open access literature is digital, it's online, it's free of charge, and it's free of most of the copyright and licensing restrictions. Scholars and scientists are very differently situated from most musicians or movie makers. Because, as you know, at least those of you who publish already, you are not paid by the journals on a regular basis. Though you can consent to open access without losing revenue. And I think this is important to keep in mind. Basically, there are two complementary paths towards open access, the so-called green one and the golden one. Green one is using a repository, a university repository or a subject-based repository. This is database where you can upload your papers and make them freely available. The golden route, the complementary one, is to publish in open access journals, journals which do not charge the readers for access. So what are the basic or the most important benefits and what are the barriers to open access? I think if you try to imagine an open access world, a world completely within the open access regime, a world where open access is the rule rather than the exception, we expect that there will be many important benefits to research, including a revolution in scientific search and information retrieval, because all the information is available. There will be a strong boost for interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary research and for international cooperation. And last but not least, innovative forms, new forms of information services will be available. Think of expert systems, etc. They all depend on having the basic information available. And I don't have the ability to look into the future and to make any predictions, otherwise I would not be in a science organization, but maybe in the financial area. But I think these are promising perspectives of an open access world. So, what do scholars think about these issues? Some years ago, there was a study and around 40,000 answers were collected across disciplines and around the world. And as you can see from this slide, there was an overwhelming support for the idea of open access. But there was some concern as well. The most given answer was, I'm not sure whether I will be funded in a way that I can do open access as I would like. The next answer was quality of the journals. There was some concern that open access journals might be of less quality than the established journals in the subscription. So we have to tackle with these concerns, of course, otherwise we will not convince researchers to proceed in the open access way. So this is the area where our activities are focused on. And I would like to mention only a few of them, just to give you a short impression of what we are doing internally. Lack of funding. Lack of funding was mentioned as the main barrier to open access. And I think the basic principle mentioned in the first line of this slide is the most important one, that the publication and the dissemination of research results should be regarded as an integral part of the research process. Without publishing, science will stop or have to invent the wheel over and over again. So research funders should include allocations for making research results freely available in their grants. The Max Planck Society has more than a decade of experience, and we have followed since then this centralized support scheme for open access publication charges. The rationale behind this is that we would like to remove any administrative burden getting invoices processed, etc. from the authors. Licenses and open access publication charges are negotiated, administered and monitored by a single service unit within Max Planck Society. And article processing charges are met from central funds in case where an agreement with an open access publishers has been concluded. What lessons can be learned from this? I think research organizations like Max Planck Society have to make policy and budgetary decisions, and organizational issues are involved in this as well, that will enable them to finance the publication in the new open access way. Quality of journals was a concern for most scientists. And the way Max Planck Society is going to tackle this, we support, and we, in some cases, we found open access journals which are of high quality. Because the quality and the reputation of a journal is by far the most important factor for an author when choosing where to publish or where to submit an article. I just want to give you some examples. The journal family Living Reviews in certain fields, the Living Reviews in Relativity continues to be the #1 in the field physics, particles and fields. This is the field of my experience, with an impact factor of more than 16. We have other journals like Atmospheric Chemistry and Physics, which was initiated by one of our scientific members a few years ago, and which is a journal owned and operated by a learned society, which is the most important journal, has become the most important journal in this field. And eLife was launched 2 years ago. This is a cooperation between the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, the Wellcome Trust in the United Kingdom, and the Max Planck Society. And it's too early to judge the quality of the journal, but the quality of the editor-in-chief of this journal was judged by the Nobel Prize Committee last year, and we are very proud to have Randy Schekman as editor-in-chief of this new open access journal. So, this was about how to tackle the concerns about the quality of open access journals. I just want to mention very briefly, because Teresa asked me to do so, yes, we operate a publication repository as well. The number of items is growing steadily, but not every item is with a full text, and not every full text is freely available yet. This is because our institutes try to include all their publications, even the publications from years ago, and it is not an easy task to address all the copyright issues in the right way from the beginning. But the number is growing, and you can see most items in the repositories are articles, conference papers, the second category, thesis books, and we try to have a very broad spectrum of items within this repository, because we want this to be part of the daily life of a scientist. They can use it to put in their videos, pictures, etc., but obviously, the publications are the most important. Okay, so we have internal regulations as well, and these are very important for our institutes and the scientists working in our institutes. We have rules of good scientific practice, and within these rules, open access is already implemented. Our institutes will be evaluated every 2 years by an external scientific advisory board, an international scientific advisory board, and this is very important procedure for every institute. And therefore, we decided to ask the institute to address the open access activities within the institute in the institute's status report. That is, every institute has to think about what do we do with regard to open access at least every 2 years, and all members of the institutes, from the scientific members of the society, the directors of the departments, to the library and the service units, they have to take this into account in writing the report. This is a very important procedure, and I'd like to show you in a second what results stem from these regulations. So let me summarize. There's a broad range of activities. The Max Planck Society is committed to open access. We initiated the Berlin Declaration a decade ago. We had a series of conferences, the Berlin Open Access conferences during the last 10 years, being in Europe for some years, in Asia, in the US, and in South Africa as well. We do advocacy work, we think about strategies, we cooperate with partners, we support the green road to open access and the golden road to open access as well, and we have these internal regulations. This is our toolbox, and I'd like to show you some results of having this toolbox in place. So, first of all, let's look at the global article output, the publication shares. As you can see easily, open access is the most dynamic segment in the whole publishing business. It's growing. And the number of articles in open access journals within Max Planck Society, this is the internal perspective, is growing as well. It's in line with the global developments. Now let's have a look at the distribution, the development of of Max Planck publications. As you can see, in 2012, this is the last year of this analysis, authors within Max Planck Society published about 10,000 scientific papers. A growing number is in open access journals, and I think it's interesting as well that the significance of the major publishers is declining. That is, our researchers who are free to publish where they want to decide not to publish with the big ones in the same way as they did 10 years ago. That is Elsevier, Wiley, Springer. 50%, 10 years ago, 50% of our publication share was with these three publishers, and now it's only 1/3. And the same development is reflected also in the citation patterns. And we were lucky to have this information available. It was hard work from my colleagues in the digital library to analyze this. They used all the Scopus data and the Web of Science data, and it was useful because if it comes to negotiating contracts with Elsevier, Springer, Wiley, etc., and you can show them you are less important for us, then this will be important for the negotiations. So, let's look into the distribution of publishers for the 10,000 articles published in 2012. More than 80% of them go to only 20 publishers. More than 80%, 20 publishers. And as you can see in this diagram, 4 of them are open access publishers already. And this was a little bit surprise to me, at least, because I don't look into these numbers, and the numbers are not openly available or easily available. But it shows the growing importance of open access publishers. I'm a high energy physicist. Maybe you know that high energy physics community decided to build a global consortium, the so-called Scope 3 initiative, to switch the most important traditional subscription-based journals in high energy physics to open access journals. And Mexico is part of this initiative, the National Science and Technology Consortium. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but okay, you are you think I'm right? They are part of this initiative, and if you just imagine the effect of this initiative, sorry, what is? Here I am. The Scope 3 effect is, if you count these articles and these journals as being open access journals starting on January 1st this year, they will be in the top 15 already from the very first moment. That is, you can see the effect of a global cooperation of research community, in a certain research community. It was not an easy task. It took many years and it took many efforts, but we were able to prove the concept at least. So I think I should skip this, and because I'm speaking in a university, I should speak about the next generation of scholars. I think the younger generation, most of you in the audience, you're used to and you expect free internet available information. And from my experience, we should build on the importance of students and early career researchers as the next generation of scholars, and the impact these groups already have in opening up scholarly communication. This was the reason because why we organized the first satellite conference to the Berlin conference last year, and it was amazing to see the enthusiasm and the commitment of students, PhD students, and early research, early career researchers from all over the world. They are committed to open access, to foster these ideas, and as a follow-up this year in November, there will be a conference in Washington, D.C., and the Max Planck Society will support participants with travel grants, etc. It's amazing to see the power these groups have to create change. But we should acknowledge as well the challenges early career researchers face from a scholarly publishing system in transition. So It's about you. You will have it in your hands to foster the development of open access. I think it's important that we have a common goal and that we cooperate to reach this goal, but there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Different scientific communities, different organizations, they have to think about their way, the optimum, if there is an optimum, their optimal way towards open access. We can learn from each other's experiences, we can share our views, and I think this is about this is the reason why I am here. I would like to learn from you, and I hope you enjoyed some of the information I was able to present to you. These are my concluding remarks. Obviously, the scholarly publishing system has to be restructured in order to fit better into the digital information age. The costs, of course, there are costs related to publishing. The costs of scholarly publishing are already supported to a large extent by research funding organizations, including universities like yours. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a need for a coordinated approach. This final quote is from the mission statement, which will guide the Max Planck Society's activities over the next few years. It's the final sentence in this mission statement. It's time to return control of scholarly publishing to the scholars. Thank you.
Tenemos una pregunta que además la hicieron en inglés directamente. What is your advice about the best practices, implementation or use of open access in countries that recently are adopting this model of open access? You can read it. Your advice about how the open access.
I think it depends who should implement what policy. Therefore, it's not easy to give general advice. If an organization is starting to think about implementing a policy, I think the process of developing this policy is most important, because you have to include the views of different stakeholders and actors within an organization. Scientists, librarians, and last but not least, administration, they all have to work together and to think about the best way and the specific needs of the certain organization. Within Max Planck Society, it took quite some effort and it took more time than expected. But I think the experience is, at least the experience I have had, it's worth the effort. Try to discuss with your colleagues. If you're convinced that open access is the way your university should move forward, advocacy is needed. Show working examples, and I think the most important factor is be a role model. Do it. Do it, you can do it. and show that you have done it.
I do have a question. How did you, the Max Planck Society and in the Open Access Conference, try to attract new universities in developing countries or universities in any part of the world? For example, how you convinced the Canonical University to join you? Or it was just somebody who was there?
Actually, we do not do a roadshow. We do not advertise signing the Berlin Declaration, because I think it's up to each organization to decide. In the very beginning, and I was a participant in the very first Berlin conference in 2003, there was only a group of 30 organizations. And we decided not to advertise, not to convince others to sign the declaration, but because signing a declaration is one thing, practicing is another thing. On the other hand, I think an organization which is thinking about signing the Berlin Declaration, they have to this will be a signal to the world outside as well as a signal internally. And I'm not sure whether it's more important to show to the world that the University of Guadalajara, for instance, signed the Berlin Declaration, or whether it's more important as a tool for internal advocacy, to show that the organization is committed to open access. And therefore, no, we do not try to convince others, we but by example. I'm not sure whether this answers your question.
It's because I read yesterday the universities at that time, and they're very, very different. Different level of universities, very well known or very small. Some of them with very specific field, not universities like ours that has every part of the knowledge, but very specific. And I was questioning about it.
There is no restriction, but the organizations willing to design has to operate in the field of science. It's not possible for individuals to sign the Berlin Declaration. There are other declarations on open access where you can sign as a scientist or as a layman if you want to. But this is specific to the Berlin Declaration. It's only for organizations, science organizations. And this is the only restriction. We welcome all organizations around the world who are interested to join this group of supporters of open access.
Thank you, Dr. Botz, and thank you. Y gracias a todos ustedes.